looked at it through the lens but didn't have the language. That the people we see today, even if you saw them for 20 years, are not the same people we saw pre-COVID. They're different. They're people that have been under care for a long time, and you probably find they're super unstable. They all of a sudden, maybe some of them have some mental health concerns that they never had before. You start to see that they are the ones that are constantly getting hurt out of the blue. They don't understand why. You don't understand why. You're wondering what's going on. And so we're really looking at a population of people, all of you included, that has been traumatized over what has happened the last 2.5 years. And the way I've described COVID is that it was a trauma perpetrated against humanity by humanity, which makes the nervous system really hard to care for. Because the basic principle of polyvagal is that the healthy, vital nervous system needs to be connected to other humans. It is our biological imperative as mammals that we call humans. And now that we've taken that away from people, and actually what we've done is made people scary towards people, or scared about other people, it's made the nervous system confused, and it's made the nervous system go into a state of threat. So how that threat shows up is a million things. You actually cannot have a list of conditions that is long enough to talk about how the nervous system has shown up in a state of threat. So the goal for today really is for us to just talk a little bit about what threat physiology is so you understand it and how it works, and bring your focus as a chiropractor, prior to Dawn talking, back to the real basics of the primitive brain stem surveilling system that determines what the physiology will do. That is, in one sentence, what polyvagal is. Threat physiology is determined by a reflexive surveilling system in the brain stem that is not engaging the prefrontal cortex. So I get we love brain stuff, and we talk about prefrontal cortex all the time in chiropractic. Dawn and I talked about it a lot before, and then we realized it's kind of irrelevant. Because in order for the prefrontal cortex to be functioning appropriately, your brain stem has to be able to identify safety in its environment, outside of its body and inside of its body. Otherwise, it starts to impair the prefrontal cortex's ability, and that's what you see all day long in your practice. You see that in people's behavioral patterns. Prefrontal cortex is behavioral patterns, it's languaging. So we're looking at all of that as the issue, and we're going to just pause on that, and we're going to try to get you to look at this as an unconscious, non-perceptive brainstem activity. You just happen to be dealing with the body part of it when they walk in. And then when you lay your hands on somebody, you are feeling, hopefully, that's why we're calling the protocol bringing the feeling back to chiropractic, you are feeling the response of that. You with me? So if I were to sum up polyvagal, that's how I would sum it up in a clinical application for chiropractic. There's lots of things you can do in polyvagal today. You can go down the rabbit hole of polyvagal as much as you want. You can go and you can read every book that he's written. You can take all the courses. The missing link that we found is there's not a real lot of clinical application to practice. So once you start, just what you were saying, Lisa, once you start to dig into it and you're like, well, this is super interesting, so I need a little more information, you can go down that rabbit hole. However, what does that mean to you as a chiropractor? Because at some point, we have, even 2 years in, and you're in offices with mentors, there's enough information in this room. You don't need me to teach you any more information, technically. Really, you don't. What you need is a clinical sort of, this thing that links this ideology that we have in polyvagal, which is really chiropractic, that there's this hierarchy. And when we start to understand that people are not consciously making these decisions, and when you are trying to consciously get somebody to change a behavioral pattern, and they don't, which is what we love to do in chiropractic, we're not dealing with the crux of the issue. And the crux of the issue is every single person you see, and most of you are in threat physiology. It's just showing up as a problem, a condition, a pain, a blown neck, a blown rib, a blown lumbar spine, a blown disc, short of somebody being acutely injured. Like Kevin said last night, he got hit in was it hockey, or what did you do to your shoulder? Hockey?
Yeah, hockey.
Okay, that's an acute injury to the body. Those happen. However, if you were to look at your last 10 new patients, my guess is most of them didn't have acute injuries to their body. Most of them came in and they thought it was very weird, very bizarre. They couldn't believe what happened. They don't know what happened. And you trying to get them to further understand what happened actually creates a problem for them. Because the more you try to engage the prefrontal cortex in remembering and talking about it and trying to make sense of it, they actually start to get elevated in their physiology. For fun, you could measure that if you wanted to. You could put a heart rate monitor on somebody or a pulse ox with resting heart rate and start talking to them about it. And watch what happens to their physiology. Because when you are asking them to engage the prefrontal cortex in that conversation, the brainstem starts to go, I'm already in threat, and you're actually making it worse. That's where trauma-informed comes in. So I'm just going to throw that word in real quickly, because when you understand that, you're going to learn that yes, you need to do certain things for your files. All of us have rules. We follow the rules. They usually give you that information on the first visit. You do what you need to do, and then you move on. You don't really need to go down the rabbit hole as much as we do, because usually it's not going to give you any better information other than get your damn hands on that. In our experience, just in a very short period of time we've been teaching this, with just a few hours in our sessions, it became very quickly apparent to us that a lot of chiropractors have either been going through the motion for a long time, and they're like, I don't know that I even felt that, now that you mentioned it, or I never even checked that, or I actually don't know what that actually feels like. And the more strict the protocol is with technique, the less feeling you have as a chiropractor. That's also what we've learned, which has been really interesting, because a lot of the strict protocols, we get a lot of those docs coming, and they're like, I never even thought to check that because I never understood the linkage. So today we're going to talk about that linkage, because there are other things going on. The days of touch the spine, heal, that shall be done, right? Do nothing else, is still a really big model in chiropractic. We lived there for like almost 15 years. Like that was a big thing. Don't do anything else, right? Part of the body heals the body. True, except that there's more to the spine, and we start to understand the neurology, particularly as it relates to polyvagal, and the cranial nerves, particularly the vagus nerve. You start to look at things differently, because you realize it's not above, down, inside, out. It's mostly up, down, around, inside, out. When we realize we're actually dealing with mostly sensory information that informs the brainstem as to whether the physiology is safe, you will start to look to the body for more information than just the spine. I don't say just the spine because that's suggesting it's not important. So don't take that the wrong way. I'm pairing those two together. So I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to do real basic stuff on polyvagal, just so when Dawn starts to talk about it, it makes a little more sense with the language we're going to use.